What's up, guys? Sergio here. So back with another episode of my training series. This is going to be episode 3. Today we're going to be doing shoulders with a little bit of traps as well. So let's get right to it. So first off, before I talk about the workout, the two pieces of equipment that I'm using are weightlifting belt and the wrist wraps. Like I've mentioned before, the wrist wraps help to support your wrist and make sure that your wrist stays straight when you're doing most exercises that require that position. The weightlifting belt is for a few exercises that you'll see, including the first one, which is a reverse shoulder press. Which you would think you wouldn't need it for something like that, but when the weight gets kind of heavy, especially when you're sitting in reverse, you don't really have anything to brace yourself. So having that belt just helps to brace me and just keep me from arching or overarching my back. Starting with the first exercise, which is the shoulder press machine, I'm going to start off with 4 warm-up sets. So I'll do 2 facing the front and then 2 going reverse. When you do the shoulder press machine facing the front, a lot of times you just don't get as good of a range of motion. But what I found is that when I face reverse, I get a lot more stimulation in my shoulders. So that's really the reason why I like doing it in reverse. With the shoulders, the shoulders, especially when you do shoulder press, it's a smaller muscle group, so it doesn't take a whole lot of exercises or sets to really get your shoulders going. Also, the shoulders are used in a lot when you do chest exercises or chest movements, so that's actually the reason why you won't see me doing any front delt exercises, because I get so much stimulation in my front delts already when I work out chest. I don't do any kind of front delt exercises because that is not one of my weak areas. I primarily try to focus on my side delts and my rear delts. So the next exercise that I do is barbell shoulder shrugs, which are going to work my traps. And the reason why I do traps on a shoulder day is because shoulder day is actually pretty short. So adding traps is somewhat supplemental with shoulders in certain exercises, especially when you're working your side delts, so it goes along pretty well with shoulders. Another day you can put it on is back day, but since my back day is already pretty long, I found that putting traps on the shoulder day makes more sense. The barbell shoulder shrugs, really it's important to have really good form with this. So as you can see, I have a belt on. Sometimes I do shrugs with the belt, sometimes I don't. It just kind of depends on how my back is feeling. But either way, you want to make sure that you have really good form, that you have really good control when you're doing shrugs, because you typically have to use a lot heavier weight when you're doing shoulder shrugs. Shoulder shrugs are kind of like calves. I found that they respond better to doing a lot of reps and heavy weight. So all the more you want to make sure that you're careful when you're doing shoulder shrugs. As you can see, I really make sure that when I'm doing shoulder shrugs, when the bar is in front of me, I really try to imagine my traps going like back up and back behind my ears. That way it just keeps me in a good position where I'm not rounding my back or I'm rounding my shoulders or anything like that. Along with the barbell shoulder shrugs, I also superset with the cable shoulder shrugs. And so what you can see, the difference here is that my arms are now at my side. I'm still making sure that I have that good form. As you can see, I'm kind of angled back a little bit, and this just helps to protect my back, but also just allow me to have a nice fluid motion as I'm doing the exercise. The weight is actually pretty heavy, which you can't see, so leaning back at that angle really helps to have a nice smooth motion as I'm doing the exercise. With the traps, I'm going to do just these 2 exercises, the barbell shoulder shrug and then the cable shoulder shrug, and I'm just going to superset these, and I'm going to do about 4 sets, not including any kind of warm-up sets that I do. But I find that this is enough for me as far as my traps go. My traps really are a pretty good muscle group for me. They've always responded really well. so I don't need to do a whole lot of exercises for the traps. So just 2 exercises, 4 sets apiece. A lot of people like to use straps when doing like barbell shoulder shrugs and even dumbbell shoulder shrugs, but I tend to stay away from that because I just want to really train my grip strength and make that stronger. There's nothing wrong with using straps, especially if you're just trying to focus on, you know, building your traps per se. But for me, it's just a good practice to not use straps. So if I'm going to do deadlift or Romanian deadlifts and things like that, I'm going to have a stronger grip strength. After the shoulder shrugs, I move back to shoulders and do some lateral delts. The first exercise that I do for lateral delts is just the lateral raises. So a lot of times I'll get like 1 warm-up set in if my shoulders still aren't feeling too warm. But then after that, I'll do 3 sets, about 15 to 20 reps. And also, if you've seen my chest day, I do throw in some side delts in there because that's one of the areas that I really want to focus on bringing up. But when it comes to doing lateral raises, you want to make sure that you're trying to get your elbow to parallel with the floor. A lot of people tend to go too high with lateral raises, a lot higher than what they need to. But really, you only need to bring your elbow to parallel, and then at that point, the muscle's fully contracted. Today, I am actually supersetting the lateral raises with a rear delt exercise, which is face pulls. Face pulls are a really good exercise to engage your rear delts. The big reminder or big point to remember when doing rear delts is to make sure you keep your elbows nice and high. You're going to bring that rope right past your ears, or basically at eye level. That way it's going to ensure that you keep your shoulders engaged, or your rear delts engaged, as you're doing the exercise. With the lateral raises, and really with all the shoulder exercises, with the exception of probably the shoulder press machine, I really kind of go based off feel. So some days, you know, I might be doing 15 pounds for, you know, 2 sets, and then I'll increase it you know, for the last set. Or sometimes, you know, I might stay at just 1 weight. I really just kind of go off of feel when it comes to shoulders, because I just find that it doesn't take a lot of exercises to work the shoulders, but at the same time you want to make sure that you have good muscle activation during whatever exercises that you're using. So I really just try to go based off of feel. Some days I feel like I need to do more to really get that pump in my shoulders, and other days I feel like I don't have to do as much. So I really just kind of go based off of how I'm feeling that day and what I'm feeling is going to work the best. The second exercise that I'm going to do for my side delts or my lateral delts are going to be a single arm lateral raise, or I think sometimes they're called an Egyptian lateral raise. And basically all you're doing is you're going to grab some kind of bar or something like that, and you're just going to angle yourself so you're leaning more towards the ground. But by doing this, it really just helps to isolate and engage that lateral delt. So this is one that I do very often, and I find it to be pretty effective in really targeting that lateral delt. Another thing that sometimes people will run into is that when you're doing lateral delts, your traps will kick in. And the reason for that is just because to raise your arm, you do actually use a little bit of trap when you raise your arm to a certain level. So sometimes actually doing like the shoulder shrug exercises before you do lateral raises may be beneficial, because that will kind of help to fatigue your traps a little bit so that they don't work, or they aren't recruited as much when doing any kind of side raises. So the second rear delt exercise that I'm going to do is single arm reverse flies. So when doing this, there's a couple different ways you can do it. You can face, you know, completely backwards, like if you're going to do both arms at the same time, or you can do what I'm doing, which is I'm kind of sitting on the one side of the seat, and that just kind of gives me a different leverage than sitting reverse. But I will switch back and forth. Sometimes I will just face completely backwards where I'm straddling the seat and then do one arm at a time, and other times I will kind of sit on the side like I'm doing now. So once again, just doing what feels good, doing what feels like it's activating or engaging my muscles the most. For the lateral delts and for the rear delts, I'm only doing 2 exercises for each of the muscle groups. So once again, not that much, but it really doesn't take that much, like I said before, to really exhaust those 2 muscles. So 2 exercises a piece, and then 3 sets on each exercise. So the next exercise after doing the reverse flies and doing the single arm lateral raises is I do some more calves. And if I haven't mentioned before in my leg day video, I do calves actually 3 times a week because calves are definitely one of my weaker body parts. So I really try to make sure that I work those multiple times a week just to ensure that I am growing them and working them as much as I can. When I do calf raises on my shoulder day, I'm only doing a total of 4 sets. I want to do 2 sets standing or on the hack squat here, and I'm going to do 2 sets seated. By this time, this is going to be my 3rd time doing calves for the week, so I do a little bit lighter weight, but still keep the same amount of reps. So this is kind of my light calf day. All right, and just like calves, abs I also do 3 times a week as well. So this is going to be my 3rd time this week doing ab work. So I keep the same formula like I do on the other 2 days where I do abs. So I'm going to do a total of 6 sets, and I'm going to do pretty much whatever ab exercise that I want, but just making sure that I'm doing at least 6 sets total. Today I decided to do some lying leg raises, and so as you can see, I'm keeping my knees bent, and what that does is it takes the stress off my lower back. A lot of times when your legs are completely extended when doing lying leg raises, sometimes you can tend to get that arch in your lower back, and that's what you want to avoid, because one, it's going to hurt your back, but also it's going to keep you from engaging your abdominals as well as they could be engaged. So I bend my knees a little bit, but I really focus on pulling from almost my hip flexors to make sure I'm engaging my lower abdominals. So I'll do about I think 2 or 3 sets of this, but no matter how many sets I do, I want to do about 30 reps when doing lying leg raises. So another exercise that I do for abs, and this is for the obliques, is just basically a side crunch. So all I do is just sit reverse on the bench here and just kind of hook my legs or secure my legs in such a way so that I'm not going to move, and then I just do a side crunch. So I'll do 30 reps each side for this, and this one is actually a pretty good exercise. The way you can make it harder, I guess, is by holding weight or just by increasing your reps. So really, whichever one you feel more comfortable with doing. But I really like this one. It really does engage the abdominals. And if you are having trouble doing this, you can easily use your hand to kind of help support you as you do the crunch, and that'll make it a little bit easier, but you'll still be able to get a good workout. The last abdominal exercise that I'll do is the ab wheel. And so the ab wheel is definitely a great tool to work your abdominals. I think it kind of hits a little bit of everything. It's very similar to a plank. You probably will feel it a little bit more in the upper abdominal, but I think it still targets everything. This is a really great exercise, but a lot of people do it incorrectly. The one thing that I see a lot of people do is when they roll out and then they come on their way back, they'll really shoot their hips back so their butt's sticking out, and by doing that, you're really not working your core as much as you could be. So you want to make sure you keep your hips extended forward as much as possible, as you can see that I'm doing right now, to make sure that you're engaging your abdominals. Now when you do this, you might not be able to go out as far, but you're going to ensure that you're really engaging your abdominals as you do the exercise. So it's not about, going as far out as possible. It's about making sure that you're keeping your abs engaged during the entire movement. I can't stress enough just the importance of making sure that you only go out as far as you can maintain control in your abdominals. Another mistake people make is when they do go out too far, they actually start putting extra pressure on their back because they cannot withstand, you know, that weight of going out so far. So it's better to go a shorter distance while keeping your abs engaged rather than go out too far and now you're using your back trying to get back up. So if you feel this exercise in your lower back, then you're probably going out too far and you need to shorten the distance that you roll out. Alright guys, well that's going to be it for this video. Hopefully you guys did like the video. If you guys have any questions, just leave them in the comment section. If you guys did like the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you guys have not subscribed to my channel yet, please go ahead and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.